So, what's the best way to handle crime? It's this massive question, right at the heart of our justice system. It's a puzzle that, honestly, we've been trying to solve for centuries.
I mean, it sounds pretty simple, doesn't it? How do we stop people from reoffending? When someone leaves prison, what's the secret to making sure they can actually rejoin society and not end up back inside? That's the whole challenge of what experts call recidivism.
For a long time, the gut reaction has been to just make the punishment tougher. The logic is, if the consequences are bad enough, people will think twice before breaking the law again. It's that classic crime doesn't pay idea. But here's the thing. Is that really the smartest way to go? Because while it sounds like it should work, a ton of research shows that super harsh sentences don't always stop people like we think they will. So if throwing the book at them isn't the answer, then what is?
Well, to try and figure this out, some researchers did something pretty cool. They basically turned the whole problem into a game. A very serious game, mind you, using math to simulate society and see which strategies actually work best.
And this is where it gets really interesting. They call it the carrot and stick model. They boil the whole thing down to two key factors. The stick, that's the punishment, and the carrot, that's all the rehabilitation stuff, job training, counseling, things like that. The whole point was to play the game over and over to find the perfect mix of the two.
Now, in this simulation, every person eventually ends up in one of two groups. And they gave them these great names. You either become a paladin, someone who decides, that's it, I'm done with crime for good, or you become an unreformable, someone who, after a few arrests, the system basically gives up on.
So the way you win this game is by setting up the rules of your society to get the most paladins and the fewest unreformables possible. That's how you know your strategy is working.
So what did this simulation discover? Well, the results were pretty fascinating, and they kind of fly in the face of some of our most common beliefs about crime and punishment.
Okay, so the first big shocker, going to extremes is a bad idea. A society that was all stick, just super harsh punishment, well, that didn't work very well. Lots of unreformables. But here's the twist. A society that was all carrot, only rehabilitation, almost no punishment, that wasn't the best strategy either. This chart shows it all perfectly. See those curves? As you move from left to right, you're adding more carrot, more rehabilitation, and a little less stick. And look at what happens to the ratio of paladins to unreformables. It goes up, 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 hits a peak, and then starts to fall again. Right there in the middle, that's the sweet spot.
So what this model is telling us is that the stick and the carrot aren't enemies. They actually work together. You need enough punishment to make people stop and think, but you also need to give them real help and the tools to build a different life. It's all about finding that perfect balance.
All right, so that carrot and stick model is a really powerful way to think about things, but what if it's not just about punishment and rehabilitation? What if we've been asking the wrong question this whole time? And that question leads us down a totally different path. It's a whole other philosophy that's been gaining a lot of ground lately, all around the world. It's called restorative justice.
This definition really nails it. See, restorative justice isn't just about what the state does to an offender. It's about bringing everyone who is affected by the crime, the victim, the offender, even the community, into the same room to figure out how to repair the harm that was done.
So the goals here are way bigger than just preventing the next crime. It's about healing for the victim, it's about making the offender truly face what they did, and it's about stitching the community back together. Okay, that all sounds great in theory, but does restorative justice actually work? Well, researchers have been digging into this for decades now, and the results are really insightful.
To get the clearest possible answer, scientists did what's called a meta-analysis. Basically, they took 27 different high-quality studies and mashed all the data together. It's one of the best ways we have to see what the evidence is really telling us.
And here's what they found. It's pretty nuanced. Take a look at that first bar. When it comes to reducing recidivism, stopping people from reoffending, the effect is there, but it's small. But now look at the other two bars. Victim satisfaction, through the roof. Making offenders feel truly accountable, also incredibly high.
And this is so important. If the only thing you care about is stopping future crime, you might look at that and say, meh, but you'd be missing the real story. Restorative justice might not be the magic bullet for recidivism, but it is wildly successful at healing victims and forcing offenders to take real responsibility.
This brings us to the final, and maybe the most important question of all. All of this research really forces us to step back and ask, what do we even want our justice system to do?
What does success actually look like?
So let's break down the two huge takeaways here. First, from that game theory model, we learn that balance is everything. Going all in on just punishment or just rehab doesn't work as well as a smart mix of both. And second, from the restorative justice data, we learn that maybe we've been measuring success all wrong. It's not just about crime rates, it's also about repair, healing, and accountability.
What this really means is that we need to stop looking for one single magic bullet answer to crime. It just doesn't exist. Instead, we should think of our justice system like a toolbox. It's filled with different tools for different jobs, and a smart society knows when to use the carrot and stick, and when to use the healing process of restorative justice.
And that leaves us right here with this one last question. When you have limited time, limited money, and you're dealing with incredibly complex people, what do you prioritize? Punishment, rehabilitation, or repair? There's no easy answer, but understanding what each of these tools does best, well, that's the first and most important step.